Hi everyone, this is Mira Reeds coming to you from the internet. I have with me here Zach. Zach, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I am Zach from the Interesting Nerd Club, the Interesting Nerd Network, and from the Zach from the Club video essay channel, all here on YouTube. And those are some of the YouTube channels I have, the ones I feel like talking about today.
I almost wanted to make a Bran Stark joke about, the infinite YouTube channels of Zach.
It sometimes feels like I have infinite YouTube channels. It feels like every time I found a use case for a YouTube channel, I end up creating another. And today I realized I might want to create a additional YouTube channel on top of the ones I already have for future projects to further, add disambiguation. So maybe there's truth to that joke.
Well, as the Zach Wood net grows, oh, you know what? We're moving on. We're moving on from that. And we're going to talk about Oberyn, because that is what I have been doing lately. That is what we've been doing on the Mirror Reads channel. It's talking about Oberyn.
My favorite Martell, and one of my favorite characters in the entire book series.
Fantastic. I didn't know what to think of him the first time I read it. I was like, what a wacky guy. What an interesting character. I don't know that I would trust him with any of my secrets, but he seems like fun at parties.
He'd be a great candidate for Maester of Whispers in a small council that actually wanted to do things for the good of the realm.
Zach, it's funny that you say that. Because that's part of this theory.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so you actually jumped in at the very tail end of the list of evidence that I have, that I think Oberyn may be a Master of Whispers. How did we get there?
Oberyn Martell's Master of Whispers makes perfect sense, actually. Very few people have the, worldliness and experience that he has, and the charm and wit. All of things will serve you well as Master of Whispers, because you want somebody who's been around the block. You want somebody who can be a real conversationalist, because it's a very classic way to get information about things that you're not supposed to have. And yeah, Oberyn Martell is all of these things.
Oh, precisely. And I mean, he has a lot of other great qualifications too. He studied at the Citadel, right? I mean, it's 6 links of a Maester's chain.
Yep.
Did he say why he left?
If they say why he left, I can't remember. Knowing Oberyn Martell, my first 2 guesses are he got into a fight or he slept with somebody he wasn't supposed to.
Or both.
Yeah, usually those go hand in hand.
And so then after he left the Citadel, he goes to Essos, and they say that he rode with a foreign sellsword company, but it's not specified which one.
He fought in fighting pits too, which is an interesting thing. I know that's show canon. I'm pretty sure that's book canon as well. It has been a hot minute since I've reread any of the chapters in which he appears, so that might be memory atrophy at my point. But the idea that he has performed 1v1 combat before is established in setup for, of course, the purpose he serves in the narrative of Tyrion's champion in trial by combat.
Yeah, so I think the fighting pit specifically was the show, but he certainly, has fought duels. He certainly was highly skilled.
Yes.
I don't want to talk about the show.
Yes,
I've blanked it from my memory.
We don't need to recap the entirety of the Bad Dragon show.
We do not. But so we know that he rode with the Sellsword Company. We don't know which one. Preston Jacobs thinks it was the Brave Companions, or that he founded the Brave Companions. And honestly, I don't hate that theory, and you'll see why.
I don't hate that theory. I kind of like the idea that he rode with the Golden Company instead, but especially because we know there's some Targaryen loyalties there, and if you go with the a dragon is still a dragon sort of approach, it would make sense for him to ride with them. But again, we just don't know. We don't have enough information.
Yeah, I mean, thematically, I would like it if it was the Second Sons, just because he's a second son. But I think it's not only rumored that he rode with the Sellsword Company. I think it's that he founded one.
And then him founding the Second Sons would be a wonderful.
It wouldn't.
Lore.
Yeah, but the Second Sons and the Golden Company are both older than Oberyn, so I don't think it could be either of them. But even so,
he could not have founded the Golden Company because we know when it was founded. And we know who founded it.
Right, yeah.
Unless we're coming up with a long shot, Oberyn is bitter steel in disguise theory.
Not that far of a long shot, but this may or may not be a secret identity theory.
Ooh, I like those.
Yeah. I don't have that many of them because I feel like the decent ones have already all been identified. But I'm here to submit my secret identity theory to the Council of Theorists and see how they take it.
I'm very excited.
So some of this is just going down the list of Preston Jacobs. I think his Deeper Dorn. It's the third or fourth video. I'll link it in the description for anybody who somehow made it to this channel without having first encountered Preston Jacobs, which I don't think is possible. But just in case, I will link that video because he considers a lot of the same evidence that I'm looking at, but we come to different conclusions on this one. What's another thing that Oberyn is known for?
Well, he has many kids, and they're all girls, which is curious.
Yes, that is very curious. And you have touched on the next video. We're going to be going back to the sand snakes. Yeah, and Preston theorizes that he sort of uses them as his agents. I think it's more that he just winds up with a lot of children. He's just that kind of person.
A lot of children, and they take after him to some capacity. So, like, them being his agents doesn't need to be true, but them picking up on his, like, sort of, like, Master of Whispers-esque sort of role and Doran and personality makes sense. Children learn from their parents.
Right, exactly. And like Obara's story about she picked up the spear, it's I don't want to say a metaphor because she's telling the story like it was literal, but it's more an expression of her choosing to follow her father's path and not her mother's. It's not like Oberyn forced her to learn to use a spear.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more that each of the kids chooses a path that aligns in some way with something that he's done or some combination of his personality and their mother's, which is, kind of what kids do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially when your parent's somebody who lived such a varied and interesting life like Oberyn has lived. Because he is the man who has the personality of I'll try anything once and actually I already have.
Now he's just looping back around to try them all a second time.
Yeah, exactly. He's got notes on which ones he enjoyed and which one he didn't, and he's gonna go for round 2. Exactly.
And so one of his daughters,
Taine, one whose mother was a septa.
Yes, and so she's the one who is currently planted to spy on Howland Reed. For the record, everyone, I do not believe that Howland Reed is the High Sparrow. I believe he's someone else, and we'll be talking about that another day.
Yeah, he's Sir Sadrich, the Mad Mouse.
No, he gave it away, Zach.
Wait, really? That's my theory. I didn't know it was also yours.
Yes.
I legit believe that theory. I'll have it on the record. I mean, it's already on the record,
too.
But I totally believe that.
You know what? We don't need a video, Zach. We just agreed. That's all we needed, right?
So somebody has validated our theories, and that's all that matters. Somebody else on the internet thinks I'm right. Nobody can take that away from me, except George R. Martin when he writes something different.
Oh, that's actually one of the plot lines I am most interested in seeing in Winds of Winter is like, WTF is the Mad Mouse doing? And I have to say Mad Mouse because I cannot say Sir Shadrick without having to do that.
Shadrick? Yeah, it's Mad Mouse is much easier to pronounce.
Exactly. But so Oberyn studied to be a Maester. He knows Marwyn. Left the Citadel with 6 links of a chain. We don't know why. Rode with a foreign Sellsword company. I believe he founded one. People theorize that it is the Brave Companions. He studies poisons, taught poisons to Tyene, and he shows up in King's Landing. And in his first conversation with Tyrion, who he has never had a conversation with, he has met Tyrion, I guess, says, I want revenge. Which is not maybe how I would open a conversation, but he's a very forthright kind of guy. And this is sort of like the rest of his story, through the rest of the Storm of Swords. There's no the. Nerds in the audience, I don't need to be corrected. I know the right answer. And so, Zach, if you could tell the folks at home about the thing he wants vengeance for.
He wants vengeance against Tyrion's father, Tywin, for his ordering of the sack of King's Landing, in which his beloved sister was murdered along with her children in a gruesome and horrifying fashion by the Mountain. And Tywin knew exactly what he was doing by sending the Mountain there. He was co-signing her to a brutal, horrible death, and he thought, that was Tywin's power play, basically. He spent the entirety of of Robert's Rebellion sitting on the sidelines, and he wanted to make a last-minute political move to be part of the, negotiations when the new order of Westeros was put together. And that meant murdering a largely innocent woman and her entirely innocent children. And Oberyn is very, very much angry about that, and in my opinion, he has every right to be. So he takes the opportunity to stick it to both Tywin and the Mountain at the same time.
Mm-hmm. In a very showy way, and he keeps repeating about. Well, I won't repeat the exact lines because this isn't a children's channel, but it is relatively family friendly. But yeah, and he keeps trying to elicit a confession when he does finally confront the Mountain, and he does mostly defeat the Mountain. Right? It's sort of like, but for the intervention of George R. R. Martin, Oberyn would have won.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen multiple people react to the scene in the show and say it's a tie, which is not right, but feels right. He kills the Mountain. If the Mountain is Robert Strong, it's not with his soul intact. It is a shambling corpse version of him.
You touched on the next.
Yeah, he pretty much, in all but, his body still moving, has killed the Mountain. He has taken from him the functions of his brain and the functions of his body. It is strictly because of, well, now here's where we're getting to the interesting Brave Companions connection, it is one particular Maester who's known for messing with the dead, who gives us Robert Strong. Qyburn.
Mm-hmm.
We all love Qyburn. Qyburn.
Cersei loves Qyburn.
Cersei loves Qyburn. Qyburn is one of the few people with their Euron Greyjoy and maybe a select few of other people, is one of the few characters in Westeros who would be reading H.P. Lovecraft if that's a thing that they could do. But specifically, Euron is reading Dagon and the Call of Cthulhu and the Shadow over Innsmouth. Qyburn is reading Reanimator, Herbert West Reanimator.
Well, and I don't know how familiar you are with Preston Jacobs' work.
I'm decently familiar, but it's been a hot minute since I rewatched his Dorne stuff.
But so as he has kindly already laid out for us, all of the descriptors of Oberyn that we've just given also apply to Qyburn.
Yes.
Studying at the Citadel, specifically with Marwyn, left without a complete chain, whether he had one and it was taken away, or he failed to finish one. It sounds like it was taken, but they both left the Citadel without a chain.
It's very heavily implied that Marwyn was kicked out for running unethical experiments by their
Qyburn.
Definitely. Or Qyburn, yes.
Yeah. And it's Qyburn who identifies the poison that was used to kill the Mountain, and they remark about changing a poison usually weakens it. Pycelle and Qyburn have this conversation, and it's interesting that Qyburn was able to figure this out so quickly when, and Pycelle is not a healer predominantly. One of them notices he has more gold links in his chain. I think it's Ned. So ultimately, Preston Jacobs' conclusion is that Qyburn is working for Duran and Oberyn as their agent. I don't agree.
I also don't agree because he seems too self-interested and I don't want to say self-absorbed, but focused on his experiments. He just loves messing with corpses, that Frankenstein-esque monster of a person. I don't think he has ambitions to help out a single House of Westeros, because the best thing he could do right now is one, the second they start getting Red Aegon switch sides, because Aegon is the best fast route to getting Martells close to the throne that exists. But also it would make more sense for him to actively undermine Cersei at every step, which...
Well, but isn't that what Qyburn...
Sorry, go ahead.
Isn't that what Qyburn is doing?
I don't think intentionally he's going out of his way to undermine Cersei. I think he's undermining Cersei because he can't help but mess with corpses. If you want to see somebody who's intentionally undermining Cersei at every step, we have plenty of better candidates, including my man Oberyn Waters, who totally like flirts with her long enough to get votes and then leaves.
Yeah. Qyburn is there kind of giving her advice every step of the way and allowing her to make these bad decisions, and presumably he knows better and is sort of yes-manning her into a hole. We know Varys at the end of Dance of Dragons says, we want Cersei back because she was doing such a bad job.
Yes.
And Qyburn was there advising and facilitating Cersei doing her bad job. But sticking close and maintaining her trust enough that she wouldn't kick him out or have him executed, because she's also she's very volatile. She blew up the Tower of the Hand. Sane, healthy people don't do things like that.
Exactly. And I think that's my read on Qyburn, is that he is doing this. He basically has free reign to do all the horrible, unethical experiments he's wanted to run, and he will yes-man Cersei regardless of the consequences to the realm, because he doesn't care about the realm. He cares about messing with dead people.
My theory is that he cares about other things. He does not care about... You're right. We both agree that he does not care about helping Cersei, and he does like making his corpse monsters. But you're gonna hate me.
Okay, no, I'm curious where this goes. I'm not married to the idea he has no deeper ambitions. It's just, to me, he is always read as a little bit Herbert West, a little bit Dr. Frankenstein, and a little bit someone who has done too many drugs.
Well, and so we know that Oberyn is also a little unhinged. He killed Lord Ironwood, right? After sleeping with his paramour, and then used the poison-tipped blade.
Yeah.
Because it was supposed to be first blood, and then Lord Ironwood died. Oberyn was 16 when he did that.
Yeah, he is willing to kill for reasons that other people in Westeros would probably find not quite up to snuff. And he's willing to kill in a not a particularly honorable way. Poison is not the, man's way of killing. I think we've talked before about how, poison is like a woman-coded murdering accessory in the world of Westeros, in the world that George R. R. Martin writes. It's considered, in the misogynistic, not that great for gender equality world of Westeros, it's considered dishonorable to kill somebody with poison. Meanwhile, if you were to lop their head off with a sword, that's apparently better.
Right, well, that's actually really interesting. So the thing that Oberyn does is he coats his weapons with poison. The part of the reason poison is a woman's weapon is that you can sneak it into someone's food.
Yes.
You don't have to confront them. But Oberyn does confront people. He gets into these single combats, and he's a good fighter.
Yes, and if he's got poison or weapon, he just needs to land one hit on you, and you're already dead.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what I'm saying is this borderline sociopath behavior was shown in Oberyn from the time he was a teenager. He was in the wrong in that situation, accepted the single combat, and then basically cheated. I don't even want to say cheated. The rules said it's to first blood, and he killed Lord Ironwood.
And he did this for selfish reasons entirely. He did this because he wanted to kill him.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you see where I'm going here. Another point that Preston Jacobs brings up is that Qyburn is the person who is there to witness the deaths of the people you mentioned earlier, Zach. Gregor Clegane, Tywin Lannister, and also Amory Lorch at Harrenhal after they leave him in the bear pit. We have all these parallels here, and we have Qyburn completing Oberyn's mission. Wouldn't it be more interesting, rather than Qyburn being an agent of Oberyn and Duran?
Huh? Mm-hmm. It's
so
curious,
Oberyn is spelled Oberyn, and Qyburn is spelled Qyburn. No, Zach, I don't know if you have a piece of paper near you, but if you want to write those down and look at them next to each other.
They're similar.
Very similar. Just like Arstan and Barristan, and Bael and Abel, and Sorella and Alaras.
Alaras is literally the child of Oberyn Martell.
Yeah, and the subject of my first video. Everybody go check that one out. Yeah. So, with all these parallels in their experiences and their objectives and their interests in poisoning and killing people to the point of being sociopaths. And then the name thing,
I see exactly where you're going here.
I don't think Qyburn is an agent of Oberyn and Duran. I think Qyburn is Oberyn.
So there's one problem here, which is that
I know what it is.
We watch Oberyn Martell die, but we know glamoring exists, right? We know that you can make somebody look like you using magic, because the Mance Raider is alive and he's burned alive, but the person who's burned alive is the Lord of Bones, I believe.
Yep.
Is burned alive instead. And all that Oberyn Martell would need to do is find some schmuck who's good at trolling a spear around and landing a couple blows to fight Gregor Clegane for him, knowing that person's okay with dying, which is a big ask. We don't usually ask people to go into life or death situations like that and expect people to say yes. But assuming that he could find somebody, yeah, he could have faked his own death in there and then continued living as his Dr. Frankenstein alter ego.
Well, the problem with that is Qyburn was traveling with Jaime.
Yes.
The guy who was there with Amory Lorch at Harrenhal, the guy who fixed Jaime's stump, is still out in the Riverlands at the time that Joffrey was poisoned, because Jaime gets back to King's Landing after Sansa's already gone. So I think whoever that was in the pit was with Ilaria Sand the whole time. I think it was the long con that they swapped places years ago.
And it's more like there's the princesses in Fire and Blood who switch places.
Mm-hmm.
And there's other examples of people switching places, and if depending on what your take on the Tower of Joy is, there's people who switch places or come up with new fake identities and stuff like that. And there's plenty of examples of people taking fake identities. And yeah,
so I think
that makes perfect sense. Actually, like Oberyn needs to do things that
he doesn't want to call attention to himself. He wants to be able to fly under the radar.
Exactly. A lord is not supposed to poison people or do maesterly type things because it's, maesters are disinherited. There's a reason why they picked Aegon over Aemon. And if he wants to do borderline criminal maester things, being a highborn lord is going to put such a spotlight on that he's not going to get away with it. But if he's just some schmuck out there with, most of a maester's chain, then who cares, right? That presumably happens a decent amount, so he would need to find somebody else to take over the Oberyn Martell persona.
And who wouldn't want to dress up in fancy clothes and sleep with the hot lady and have all this money and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. You have all the wealth and status of a highborn lord. You have a reputation as an adventurer that you could walk into any tavern, make shit up, and people will believe you because, you have this reputation of this man who went on great adventures. And it actually, I was looking, this is the other interesting thing I think about Oberyn Martell, is that before he has his 3 daughters with Ilaria Sand, he, is zipping across different areas back and forth, because one of his children was fathered in Old Town, and then another one was in Atlantis, and another one was in the Septa, presumably somewhere in Westeros, and then the other one was in the Summer Islands, or with a Summer Islander at some location. So either he has a very specific taste in women who are well traveled from their location, or he is traveling at a very rapid pace.
He's traveling on the Cinnamon Wind.
Yes, that's yes, that's what he's doing. He's on the Cinnamon Wind. Yeah, the idea of him switching identities is pretty compelling, and Qyburn serving Dornish interests makes a lot more sense if he is a son of Dorne, if he is Oberyn Martell. Because Qyburn, the random guy who likes messing with dead bodies, doesn't really have any reason to serve a higher purpose, that a house of the Seven Kingdoms that has political interests, if he's just some guy. He could have loyalty, he could have people he prefers, but ultimately, if he's just some guy, his preference is going to be whoever lets him perform the most heinous experiments, which is currently Cersei. But if he is a Martell, if he is Oberyn, and the Oberyn we saw die is just some other person, then it makes perfect sense that he would have loyalty towards House Martell. And
so here's the next piece of that theory. I think Ilaria and Duran knew about the switch.
Ooh. I mean, that would make sense for Ilaria, right? Either the switch happened long ago, and those 3 kids
aren't really Oberyns.
Are really Oberyns. which makes sense because as far as I can tell, they're not part of the whole sand snake dynamic as much as the others are. They're also much younger.
They're younger. In the preview chapters, one of them is going with Ariane.
Their kids, actually, I think.
Yeah, Lady Lance.
Yes. Lady Lance, who's the eldest, she's 14.
So they're, the other ones are pretty little. But the two people who are telling the sand snakes to calm down and we need peace are Duran and Ilaria. And Ilaria says, will, causing war, bring my love back.
The war won't matter because the love was
isn't dead.
Either not dead or not relevant because it's not the father of the people who want to go to war. It is some other person who she can't get back, but she also can't, for keeping the secret reasons, can't tell them, hey, that the person who died is not your father. Your father decided that he wanted to become a person who does horrifying experiments on dead bodies, which he's still doing and having a fun time with.
Or, okay, so here's where we get into the real tinfoil, and I'm very excited for this. He might be working on, because Duran tells Ariane that they don't have enough military to adequately fight King's Landing if it came to that. He said, I've been bluffing. They think we have so many more men than we do because they can't surveil us.
Yeah.
So what if this zombie thing is Oberyn's attempt to even the playing field?
It's another army of dead. Yes, it's not just the others raising whites you have to worry about. It's Oberyn Martell raising an army of whites,
of fire whites.
That's very compelling because the idea of I'm a big fan of uncommon as a theory. I don't know if it's true or not, but if that's where George is going, I'm fully on board. And the idea of maybe not even an army of the undead, but precision strike, mind-controlled corpses would be amazing for destabilizing a realm. If you had husks of humans that you controlled and you got them in positions of not necessarily power, but proximity to it. Yeah, in the Red Keep.
Yeah.
If you have a member of the Kingsguard who is a soulless husk that you control, if you get people in the Golden Cloaks who are soulless husks that you control, if you get enough of those people in enough positions where they can cause chaos, you can destabilize a realm, actually kind of in the same way that it would be a fun little parallel to what Tywin did, right? Earn the trust of the person who's currently in King's Landing, and then at a pivotal moment where they need you the most, betray that trust and destroy them, which is exactly what Tywin did to Aerys in Robert's Rebellion. I'm here to protect you, my king, and then immediately betrayed his trust and crushed all the weak points of Targaryen rule very brutally and very messily. It will be a fun little reversal for that to happen to the woman who considers herself the legitimate successor to Tywin Lannister.
And the question of why a skull was sent in place of the head, because it was Qyburn's decision to do that, not Cersei's.
Yes.
And my thought was they used one of the dwarf skulls, because one of them had an abnormally large head, and they were like, well, it must be the mountain. And I'm like, what if he was a very small man with a very large head? Because Cersei had all those heads lying around. So what if Qyburn sending the skull was a signal to Oberyn that he was in place and the experiments were ongoing?
If everything's going good, I'm going to send you a skull.
Because if Oberyn, or if Qyburn wasn't in place, if we're going along this theory, that Oberyn is Qyburn, if he were not in place and it was somebody else handling the mountain, because Duran specifically demanded the mountain's head, and he says that, and he is almost kind of waiting for the head to arrive before he does anything. He's not waiting for Balon Swan. He's not waiting for news from King's Landing. He's waiting for the head. If he gets the mountain's head, he knows that Oberyn failed. But if he gets the skull, he knows that Oberyn is in place and is working on this. That's a good phrase for it. This leg up in the wars to come. Or 3 legs up. 3 legs and an arm.
I like it a lot. I like this theory quite a bit.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's absolutely bananas. I mentioned this to a friend, and he was like, "Please leave."
I don't. I don't know the likelihood of it, but it explains a lot of things. And even if it's not wholly true, I never thought of like Qyburn's ability to destabilize the kingdom. Like even if Qyburn is not Oberyn, it's still true that he is in a unique position to have literal like puppets in very, very, very important places in Kingsland.
Literal meat puppets.
Yeah, literal meat puppets. He already has one on the Kingsguard, which is really, really like something, right? It's a very select group, and the level of like connection or the level of power, remember, a single one of the Kingsguard has is massive, as we see with Jaime Lannister. He has had to break his vows once to make a huge change to the world of Westeros.
And then how can we spin Robert Strong being the younger brother?
Robert Strong is the Valonqar. Is not well. I feel like it leans more towards uncommon. I would think, but
I was just thinking like if it's the parallel of like Jaime's on the Kingsguard and kills the king, Robert Strong is on the Kingsguard, kills Cersei. It's just he's the older brother. Unless he became younger when he was reborn. He was reborn after Sandor was born the first time.
That's true.
There we go. I'm kind of a normie. I think Jaime's the Valonqar. I do.
You can call it a normie opinion, but it's the most thematically like tragic and interesting one, right? The only man that Cersei has ever truly fully trusted, the person that she has had children with and loved, right? That would be the ultimate betrayal to her. That's why, like, every time I talk about Cersei's Valonqar, I think my two top candidates are it's Jaime or it's Tommen. And both of those would be unexpected and terrifying from Cersei's perspective, that she could not see it coming until it was happening. And yeah, I think Jaime is the best fit.
I think he becomes a good man by killing Cersei.
That would give him a lot of bonus points, especially if Cersei's going to do something city blowing up level. Well, yeah, threatening to blow. Like, I think the perfect test for Jaime again, right, is the exact same thing as he killed the Mad King because, well, he's going to blow up all these people. Imagine if, it's Cersei about to press the same button. Somebody who, even if, like, he doesn't love her in a romantic sense anymore, it's still his twin sister. Imagine if he has to make that same decision again with her. He's not going to kill Cersei just because she sucks and everybody hates her, which is true. She sucks and everybody hates her. But because she's about to do something so unforgivable that he needs to stop her as soon as possible.
Exactly. Well, Zach, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you coming down this next step as I descend the Oberyn Iceberg into the serious tinfoil.
Literally any time. If you want to discuss any theory with me, I will gladly pop on over.
If you want to tell the people once again where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me at the Interesting Nerd Club, at the Interesting Nerd Network, and at the Zach from the Club, where I make video essays. We'll have one soon on, I say we'll have one when I'm the only person who makes them. I'll have one soon on that channel. Maybe eventually, we'll see.
And everyone, I'm sure most of the people here watching this are already subscribed to Interesting Nerd Club, but if you're not, I cannot recommend them more highly. They have a fabulous Discord server as well. If you want to meet some great nerds, please do check them out. So until next time.
Thank you everybody for watching.